If I want to learn a French here in Oman, where locals do not speak, what should I do?
Okay, let me tell you that learning a language in a country where that language is not spoken requires probably 10 times more motivation than if the language were spoken in the country. So that would be the first requirement. You would have to be very motivated. Then you would have to have a certain rhythm or a certain daily discipline. So you put in at least, let's just say, a minimum of half an hour every day working towards learning the language. And if you have that perseverance and you have also extra things in that language to help you learn, you know, like if you watch movies in the language, if you read books in the language, all of those things will enhance your language learning for that second language.
Do you think that 30 minutes is enough in order to learn it like fluently?
Well, I don't think that 30 minutes is enough. I'm just saying that that would be like a minimum. And I'm also not talking so much about the amount of time as the regularity, the habitual practice of doing it. Like if you did it for 3 hours one day and then you didn't do it for a week, you know, it would not be worthwhile. Whereas if you do even a little bit every day, and then you have your additional things like reading books in French and watching movies in French and videos in French, then all of those things put together would help you learn the language in a country where that language is not spoken.
So when I want to learn a French, what areas should I focus on more? Listening or writing or reading? What areas should I focus more in order to comprehend the language?
Well, you know, that's pretty much a matter of taste and the way that you learn, your learning methodology. However, if you think about how children learn, first they learn to understand the language, so they're listening. So I think that listening is a very valid way of trying to acquire a second language. So you listen a lot like a child, listen for the way it sounds. There's even a very good exercise called shadowing that you do in translation, where you can follow a newscast or somebody speaking in the language like a video, and just follow along like a few words behind that person, shadowing that person just to enhance your pronunciation and try to imitate the way the language sounds. Because it isn't always just the language, it's also the way the language sounds, its intonations, its rhythms. Every language has a different one.
Do you think that some experts say that 3 years is enough in order to speak the foreign language fluently? Do you believe in that?
I agree with that. I agree with that. To me, like at least for learning English, which is like my specialty, I give it like 6 months to get a grasp on knowing the tools that you need in order to proceed and learn the language. And then with continual practice, after 2 or 3 years, you can be extremely fluent because you're building up your vocabulary all the time. Remember that when you start, if you have no vocabulary at all, you have to build up, you have to get a basic vocabulary and then start expanding, but you expand on the basic things that you've started learning. Those are your tools for learning the language. Okay, now for you, I would suggest, because maybe you have more interaction with students and so forth, is to find somebody that maybe even is willing to exchange the language with you. And so they teach you some Arabic, you teach them some English or some Russian, whatever you feel comfortable with that they want to learn, and you practice. Because sometimes when you learn that way, you pick up a lot of idiomatic usage and you pick up phrases that you don't necessarily pick up in a classroom. However, there is one danger to that the person that is teaching you, if they don't kind of have an ear to help you, you could kind of go astray in the language and pick up some bad habits. So you have to be careful that, you know, that both of you have the aim of learning the language hopefully correctly, so you can communicate, but if you wanted to take the language further up, that you still have a good grasp of the language, so you can take the language to any level you would want to later on.
What should I do so that I will not be confused between dialects and standard Arabic language?
Well, even if you learn the standard Arabic language, of course, that's probably the best if you want to travel. However, the languages, the dialects, usually are not so far apart that they can't be understood. It's kind of like, you know, Australian English compared to English from UK compared to English from North America. So they have their own flavor, but they still maintain the quality of the language.